All right, today is dough day when we mix our dough, get it ready for baking tomorrow. So right now I have 2 bowls set aside, one to hold the flour, measure it. Other one is where I'm going to be doing all the mixing with the water, sourdough, flour. Got my flour aside. I have another bag of flour, but don't worry about that. And then I'll just get my sourdough straight from the fridge. This was in here yesterday after it had gotten close to peaking, near or doubled in size. In the fridge, starts to drop a little bit, so we can see again. Let's see if there's clear lines. About right there. Kind of rose, dropped, and drops a little bit, but it's still active. We'll see when we pour it out. But I'm gonna take this right from the fridge and use it in my bake. Use it in my dough mixture. So let's see. I have my scale here. It's off, so when I turn it on, it's going to pair with the bowl to get 0. And take the flour as is. Right now I have this at 773 with this flour. Here's my recipe. 175 active starter, 660 grams of water, 930 grams of flour, 25 grams of salt. So I like to use a little bit of whole wheat. So I'm going to top this 773 to 930 with this whole wheat. All right, so flour is weighed out. Move that off to the side. Take my bigger bowl here, tare, and this is where I'm going to add my water first, and then sourdough on top. And once I add the water, so we're at 665. Next step, add in my sourdough. And first we're going to see how this looks. Wow, very stretchy still. Very strong. So even though it dropped in size, that's because it's the fridge. It's not growing as much, so it's not adding to the bubbles, but it still has this strength. Right, so this is still going to be a great starter to work with. So I tared my scale with the water in here, and now I'm just going to add 175 grams of active sourdough starter. 176. I'll take it. So this I'm going to set aside to refeed. One thing people love is this float test to see if your starter's ready. I think it's good, but if you have a shallow bowl like me and a big clump of sourdough here, it's going to be touching the bottom. But we do have a few pieces here that are floating. Anyways, that's why I like to check the strength of the sourdough as a demonstration beforehand, just to show that that makes it ready. I'm going to take it off the scale as well. I'm just mixing it up. Already the water turned this like murky color, just like this gray water. It's taking a lot of the microorganisms out of the starter and just getting mixed in with the water. So like, I still have this clump of sourdough here, but the water is already doing a great job of pulling out the yeast from this, just so it can evenly get mixed in with all of the flour when I add. This is pretty good. Like, there's still clumps, a little bit of clumps in here. Nothing big, nothing terrible. This will be perfectly fine. Right. Big clump. It'll be fine. It's wet enough where it'll easily mix in with the rest of the flour. We got, let's see, 25 grams. We're gonna use 25. I didn't really mix this flour up, so all of this whole wheat is going to be on top. And so I have about half the flour left. I'm going to just mix this up so we get a nice base. When we do this mixture, it is pretty important to have all dry clumps out. So I'm just taking my salt, adding into the rest of the flour. And I'm just going to get a little fork, mix it all up. So hopefully the salt can be evenly distributed, and it's also going to help distribute this whole wheat a little better. Kind of a little bit at a time. See, this still pretty soupy. Has a lot of flour to work with. Already my hands get a little tired, so I guess don't be afraid to use the stand mixer if you got it. But after the initial mix, I think it is important to use your hands or a mixing spatula or a plastic scraper. When we do mix with our hands, we need it to be very wet hands, otherwise you will collect dough on your fingers and you won't be able to get it off. So this is pretty dry, clumpy mixture here. Spatula is not really doing great for me right now. I mean, you can see dry parts. Over here we have wet parts, so it's kind of hard to just get everything where you want it with the spatula. So I'm going to do two things. I just take my flour bowl, I fill it up with a little bit of water, and I'll put my spatula in there, I'll put my scraper in there, and then when I do want to work with my hands, I dip my hands in the water before going in here. So we had 4 ingredients in here: water, starter, flour, salt. That's it. Everything's already mixed up together. Wet my spatula, scrape this off. So this is already in a decent spot where I might even, I'm gonna play with it a little bit more, but I can let this sit real soon. Just keep everything wet. just rotating, scooping underneath, and flipping over. Any dry pieces is going to be mixed in here, and slowly the dough, the wet dough and the starter is going to move in on its territory, take it over, whether it's on the inside or the outside. So this is the mix. Already this has become a much better ball of dough, but still wet and sticky. So, time for me to take a break. Look at that, it's just breaking apart. Come back in 20-30 minutes and see how this looks. So it has been about an hour since I finished mixing initially. I said I was going to wait about 20-30 minutes, but an hour's passed. No big deal. I hope it's a nice clear view here. So this is still fairly chunky. We got a lot of chunks here. We're going to have to mix this up when we do our stretches. And I'm going to pinch out some of the clumps. Elasticity. I'm just going to see how much has changed since it was breaking apart. Look at that. So a lot better already. It's still breaking, but look how much strength we have here. This is just time. So I'm pulling the edges, because around the edges it gets there are a bunch of dry pieces, so I'm going to get underneath the dough, stretch it out, and pinch these dry pieces in. So like this. Again, wet the hands, constantly wetting the hands. Pull this up, stretching it out, pinching, put it back over. Rotate, get underneath. You can see a lot of dry stuff here. So I'm going to pinch down low, break it up, fold over. Nice and stretchy. This is very good dough. Look how much has changed. Just an hour of time. That's why I think that it's shouldn't be too worried about what your dough looks like when you first mix everything together. Time's gonna fix it. It could be awful. It won't be stretchy, clumpy, dry. An hour, you'll come back and it's beautiful. Some big clumps on the inside here. Some wet dough along the outside. This is fantastic. And other than mixing, you call these stretch and folds. It's as simple as what I'm doing here. Rotate, pull the dough out, stretch it, fold it over top. It helps mix it up, especially in these early stages. But once it does start getting a couple hours into this, the main goal of it is to build strength, help form gluten. Like I said, time and manipulation are the two methods to help form this gluten. So we have a nice load of dough here. That's it. I'm just gonna let this again sit. I flipped it after rotating it. That was just to get a look at how taut and firm this can be. All you gotta do is stretch, fold, stretch, fold, stretch, fold. That's it for now. I'm gonna come back in about an hour and do the same thing. I know I forgot to mention at the end of that last video to cover the dough when you're not working with it. Cover it with that wet cloth. If it's not wet, get it wet again. See, the last time it was kind of clumped up and it just spreads out a little bit, but it's still nice and taut. We got a little bubble over here, a nice little bubble. It's definitely working. Here's a bubble underneath. Yeah, so bubbles are good. Bubbles are good. And same deal. This time is going to be less mixing, more stretch and fold. So I want to test like the elasticity of it. So I want to make sure that I can get the whole dough involved. So I pick it up off the bottom. It's sticky, but look at this. Look at this stretch. This whole thing. Pick it up and see it's not really sticking to the bottom. And fold it in half. Rotate, re-wet the hands. Do the same thing. And do it again. Yeah, it's going to get a little bit tougher on the third and fourth ones just because you've already folded it twice. You've stretched it and folded it twice already. So it's already taut. It's already got a lot of that stretch in it. So just a little bit tougher. Do the best you can. Let's see. I won't be able to do it this time, really, but another form is called a coil fold. You pick it up right in the center, and you drop the bottom down, and you pull the top up. You kind of tuck it up underneath. So now you get this longer piece, and I rotate it 90 degrees. Do the same thing once again. Just builds tension, gets it nice and strong, and that's it. Cover this again, and let it rest for about another hour. It's been 2 hours since I last did this. Again, I say an hour, but any time that you can do will be fine. My cloth's a little dry, so I'm gonna wet this before I put it back on again. Again, just pick the whole thing up so it is not stuck. Oh, it's really stretchy. This is good. So I'm going to start with called coil fold. So this is just lifted up. That part drops down. I drop the rest. So since it's so stretchy, the bottom part really didn't get mixed at all. So I'm going to lift this up again and fold that down. Still sticky on this side, so I couldn't do it that way. This is going to be about 4 folds in this direction. Rotate, lift it up, let the top fall down underneath, and the same over here. I pulled it a little hard so the tension broke here, but it's nice and taut. That's it. I'm gonna wet my towel and place it back on. So I'm probably gonna take another 2-hour break on this before I do another stretch and fold. So again, this is 2 loaves. This is enough dough for 2 loaves in here. So when I do get ready to shape it, I'm gonna have to cut it in half. It might be about another 4 to 5 hours from now. So I haven't worked on the dough since I last made this video. Is about 6 o'clock. That's been 4 hours. I didn't do anything with it. That was about 3 stretch and folds, I think, over the course of 4 hours. So I figured I'll just show you the setup. I have all my supplies out ready to go. I have my 2 proofing baskets. I have my gallon freezer bags that I use for each one. I reuse the same ones. Bench knife, just to makes it easy to cut, and then my plastic scraper, get it out of the bowl. I have rice flour, and I'll use this to line the proofing baskets so that the flour doesn't get stuck to the linen, and I'll put it on top of the loaves once they're in here so they don't get stuck to the bags. Bread flour here that I use to dust the table with. So nice little sprinkle. I get some on the bread knife so it doesn't get stuck. Get my hands, because I know we were working with everything with wet hands earlier, but we don't want wet hands now. So this is what my dough looks like. I don't know if you could tell, but it's definitely risen a lot. It's a little dry. I think my towel's been drying out. It's a little dry on top, but no issue. Big bubble. Big bubble. So I'm just going to turn this out into the table. Cut in half. Of course I'm going to end up with one loaf that is heavier than the other. So I just cut it, I dumped it out here. I'm not going to do anything with this. I have the one half just set to the side without doing anything. They both look exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is kind of like pre-shape this by getting it into a little ball. Got this a nice little. I'm just kind of like scooping the sides and pushing them underneath. This is a pre-shape. You're just kind of building tension on this side, letting it sit for a little bit. I don't always do that. It's something some bakers like to do. I won't die on that hill. So much so that I'll just show you how I shape without pre-shaping. So this is just the lump that we have. The goal here is to kind of shape this into a log that will fit nice and prettily into this basket. By also, not only do you want it to fit in the basket, but you want to keep the tension on the outside of the dough. So I fold in these two corners just because that's the way that this thing kind of let me do it. Take this, fold it over top, tense side. So this is all still tension on the outside. This is really nice to work with. This is good dough. I'm just kind of get some friction on the table and then pushing in. Too much flour and it's going to slide around. So this is kind of it. This is basically my shaped loaf. It'll fit in here real nice. So done shaping. Take a little bit of rice flour, sprinkle it in my bowl. See, this is split. This might be a result of some of the flour preventing it from sticking together. So I kind of just pinch these sides together and push them down. Some people call this stitching. So if you want to look up a video of somebody else stitching better, that's what you want to search for. Right? I don't care that's sticking up. I'm going to dump this, and that's going to be on the bottom of my Dutch oven. Everything will be fine. Only a nice little sprinkle. Because this will rise in the fridge a little bit. I'm going to keep it in the fridge overnight. And I'm keeping a little side of this open so it can breathe a bit, but it keeps the moisture inside. So I'm putting this off to the side. My pre-shaped. You can wait 20 minutes. Not terribly long, but see how this all kind of formed together? You can see the creases in it. So that's really kind of the only reason you want to pre-shape. Get it into a round, tense pile of dough. It's not going to stretch as much as the last one because I already built that tension, but I am going to still roll it up nice and tight. We'll squeeze the ends, use the fingers to push underneath, and then the thumbs to push underneath. And I keep tucking back in the ends because they always like to push out when I'm making the log. Okay, you got bubbles. I like to pop these. Yeah, that looks a little bit better underside here. Yeah, real nice. I don't even need to stitch this one. It's going in as is. It's tough to see through the plastic, but it's got a healthy amount of room. This, not so much. This one's over the top. You can already see it. Now, for my sanity, I'm going to weigh these. $10.99, and this one is $10.74. This one's bigger. I was right. My two shaped loaves in the proofing basket and ready to be put in the fridge overnight. It can be left in the fridge for 12. I would do at least 12 hours. It just builds flavor, gives enough time to cold proof. But you can leave them in the fridge for 2-3 days. Just take them right out of the fridge, straight from the fridge, right in the Dutch oven. So that's it. Shaping. Very fun part. A little bit difficult, but it gets easy quickly.